This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. The following program is rated PG-13 and contains language and material that may be offensive to some audiences. This is a special edition of the Havery Show, and I can't even begin to kind of describe how this feels right now, because this is really special. But there's two legends sitting in music land right now for any number of reasons, and we're going to get into all of them. But we got Paul Antone, a.k.a. Cahagas. Is it okay to say that?
Sure, man.
And we got Howie Godwin. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while, a.k.a. Tom Horn.
That's correct. Very good.
How about that?
Very few people remember that.
It's good to have you guys both here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
I'm sorry.
Pull that in a little
Try
bit
to
closer.
refrain.
That's perfect. So I don't even know. I mean, I've got two guys I've known pretty much forever. From all these different walks, for music, for law enforcement,
Right.
for wrestling, for the pet store, for getting me my first prairie dog, getting our cat Scribbles that we had for 18 years. That was my daughter's pride and joy. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with you guys if we need to do. Here, I know exactly where to start. I'm 10 years old, 10 years old. It's Saturday morning. I'm up and I have my Fruit Loops. I grew up in this house right next door. And I go behind the house, and that's where the Batemans lived. Roy Bateman. I don't know if you remember them. And it's Cheryl or Shirley Bateman, Rhonda, Carla, and Teresa.
Yeah.
That was my Saturday morning hangout to watch the cartoons. And then usually a grilled cheese sandwich there. But then I got to be back at the house to watch championship wrestling from Florida from the Armory with your host, Gordon Soley.
Yeah.
Oh, Gordon.
And it was religious. I had to be there to watch that. Yeah. There was no missing wrestling. It was my favorite part of the day. WTOG Channel 44. And right after that, Creature Feature with Dr. Paul Bearer.
Oh, yeah.
I need to know what it's like to be a kid and to watch pro wrestling and then become a pro wrestler. The dream of every little boy and girl, but every little boy.
Well, I did the same thing you did. I watched it every Saturday.
Yes.
It was just part of life, part of living.
That's right.
And my dad and mother, they'd sit around and watch it too, and they hated the bad guys and loved the good guys. And I never did think much about it until I met Eddie Graham. And I loved it, but it was too far of a reach.
Yeah.
But he made that reach happen for me. And
It was a very disclosed business, so it wasn't something you could just get into.
Oh, I'm sure.
Especially.
And I met him through law enforcement.
Really?
At the youth ranch. He was on the board.
Okay. Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch.
Right.
Okay.
In Bartow. I actually went to a meeting and met him. And at that time, if you remember, we had a local boxing match.
That's right. Joe Gallimore used to promote some of those.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
And Eddie agreed to be my corner man.
Okay.
In the wrestling match.
That's huge.
And it was huge. And then after the wrestling match, he said, is there anything I could ever do for you? And I said, well, I'd love to get in that ring one time. He said, well, I can make that happen. Wow. And he did. And then he suggested that I get with a minor group, and because I was not trained. Uh-huh. And it was pretty rough those first 6 months. And then the minor group was pretty rough the next 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And I took people just don't know. I thought about quitting several times.
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah.
I'd come home beat up.
People who say it's fake, they don't have any clue what they're talking about.
You got to pay your dues, brother.
And I'll bet when you're paying your dues, you get your butt kicked that much harder because they want to wean people out, I would think.
Well, what you do is pay your dues everywhere you go.
You got to earn your keep, man.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, right?
You got to earn your worth.
Yeah.
And if you don't tough it out, then,
And you better
just like any other job, bro.
better be ready to shoot.
Yeah.
because it's going to happen. There's going to be some feelings hurt.
Not so much anymore. They get hurt when you say something wrong to them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's right.
So you mentioned Eddie Graham. And when you mention that name, I think about Jack and Jerry Briscoe. I think about Ox Baker. I think about Killer Carl Cox. I think about Ernie the Cat Ladd. And you know what? Coach Tavernier used to bring pro wrestling to the Sebring High School gym. Yeah. Dusty Rhodes. I got to see him a few times at Sebring High School to see these legends, these larger-than-life legends in the gym at Sebring High. Mm-hmm. Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And you guys wrestled against some of these guys.
Yeah, at Sebring High School.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah. Dusty, Mike Graham. And,
yeah.
You know, Dusty was just like one of the guys, you know. I mean, he's hometown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yes.
And most of the people I've met in the wrestling business have been that way. They're good people.
Yeah. I remember reading somewhere about Andre the Giant and how the amount of food and beer that guy could consume was just like not even imaginable. Did you guys ever run into Andre the Giant? He was here once. He came to Sebring High School once.
No, I never
got to see him.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
never seen him.
Who are your heroes in the ring?
Man, here.
Sorry about that, Paul.
Heroes. Well, I mean, you know, just like same as you guys. I came home, watched wrestling, you know, and then I was religious, and I'd watch the Texas wrestling in the afternoon. You know, and then I'd go back to wrestling at night, and you know, it was just
in Kentucky. You were in Kentucky.
Well, no, you know, I was born there. I was there until probably about 8-9 years old, and then moved to St. Pete, and then ended up here in Sebring. You know, following family, I guess, and grew up here pretty much.
Yeah.
You know?
When did you come down? Roughly.
Oh man, probably like 79. I want to say.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it was about 79. I would say.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, the golden era of championship wrestling from Florida would have been about 78 to about 82, 83.
Maybe a little more than that, you know, probably about 86, 85.
When did WWE come up?
Well, you know, that's the funny part. Like, growing up, you know, even in Kentucky, I remember watching my first match ever, you know, just flipping the channel as a little kid.
Yeah.
It was Dusty and Harley Race, the night Dusty won the belt, you know. And that was Florida wrestling.
That's right.
And came to Florida, and I didn't even know WWE existed until the night I flipped it on TV, and it was the night Hulk Hogan won the belt from the Iron Sheik. That was the first time I ever seen it.
It was WWF at that point?
That was WWF, yeah. But other than that, I was familiar, you know, with some of the other companies, but never heard of WWE. But that was a more Northeast, you know, type of thing, and you know, we followed a lot of Florida wrestling.
Yeah.
Harry, you mentioned Jerry and Gerald Briscoe, and we saw Gerald.
Yeah, we just seen him a couple weeks ago.
Really?
A couple weeks ago.
Well, a lot of the guys. I mean, just like some guys you mentioned, even Jerry, Bugsy McGraw was there.
Yeah.
And Hector Guerrero, Brian Blair.
Bugsy, he was so crazy. It was unbelievable.
But we go to a luncheon about every 3 months that's held. It's called the Florida Legends Luncheon, and you know it's strictly, you know, it's a closed luncheon, no fans or nothing. Yes. So, you know, it's cool. We go up there, you know, when he's got time, when he's not too busy, you know, and you know, we'll go up there and just hang out for today, and you know, see the guys and stuff like that. So
that's special.
It's a fun time.
That's really special.
You know, interesting story about Bugsy. He was a nurse, and a lot of people don't realize that. He wrestled 1 week, and he was a nurse 1 week at Tampa General Hospital, and a huge man.
Yeah,
and he ran a ministry soup kitchen in Tampa. Bugsy's done a lot of good in this world, and he was always such a, joy to the world type.
Yes.
Came out with that song.
Funny, happy guy. Just when we seen him, bro, he walked in the door and he was just,
I just,
hey.
Yeah.
and the first time I got to wrestling, we were in Mulberry, and the promoter said, I'm going to let you go be Bugsy's tag team partner. So what a thrill that was to be with him. And we had a good match.
Yeah. But yeah, wrestling, I mean, it's just something most, just like most anybody, I mean, you were either a wrestling fan or you weren't.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was, And back then, I think a lot of people frowned on wrestling too. To a point, it was starting to get that way.
Oh yeah.
And probably in the later '80s, people a lot more frowned against it versus then were fans of it back when Grandma and all that used to go. And them grandmas in some places, bro, they're still ringside.
Yeah.
Certain places, they're still ringside.
When TV came out, there was not a lot of programming in the 50s, late 40s and
we had
50s.
13 channels on our TV.
And that was great for us.
3.
Yes, but pro wrestling was one of the pioneering things on broadcast television when television became its own thing.
Right.
Wrestling is part of what put it on the map.
Yeah.
And people don't remember that. And who am I thinking of? Gorgeous George?
Yeah.
Just George.
And he was one of the guys back in that time that was
very flamboyant.
He was already bigger than life, he was setting the tone.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you were a pro wrestler, for the most part, you were also a nurse or a carpenter or a plumber or a car salesman or something, because you wrestled because you loved to wrestle, not necessarily because you were getting rich off it. Am I wrong? Or
Well, no, I mean, you're 100% right, because I mean, if you don't, you're a fool for doing it.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, what we go through is for a reason.
That's right.
And the reason is because, we love it.
Yeah.
And we take a lot of sacrifice too in this business.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, more than what people would, the stories of, just not being home or just being on the road and beating up your body and working for next to nothing and this and that. It's, it's all true. But that's all part of, the sacrifice you put in it to get, to hopefully get somewhere and do something, and accomplish something in this business and get some recognition, and get value.
Yeah, for sure.
It was so territorial when I started. I started in 1981. And I mean, if you made Florida Championship Wrestling, you
were the man.
Oh yeah.
might be in Hollywood.
That's right.
Or something. And then 44 started with a big Channel 44. Ted Turner started with a big wrestling program, and it kind of took away from everybody else. And then WWF.
Yes.
And but I remember there was, our group had to be very careful. We had to get permission to wrestle in Tampa, or there would be problems.
Really?
Or they'd put you out of business.
Oh, no kidding.
And you did not step on somebody's territory or somebody's match or program or whatever. And there was a lot of respect there, or, it was backed up.
Is this, forgive the term maybe, but is this something like maybe a wrestling mafia kind of thing? This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. Forgive the term maybe, but is this something like maybe a wrestling mafia kind of thing?
I don't think so. It was just these people put a lot of money in.
Stay out of my yard.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
a lot of money in advertisement. They created that territory, and they were running these things, and then you come in and try to lowball them at a venue, and the next thing you know, you got real trouble. You got Florida Championship Wrestling.
It's like an outlaw thing.
Next door, Yeah. But they were real good to our group at the PWA and out of Plant Cities, who I first went with, and they would take some of our people, Bob Cook, and a lot of people came from that PWA and went on to the Florida Championship, and I did a couple of shots with Florida Championship, and it was great, But it's just. Like Paul said, and back then in 81, it took probably about a year, but we were wrestling 2 and 3 times a week.
That's got to be just brutal on your bodies to do that 2 or 3 times a week.
Most I've done, probably it's probably a solid year. I was working 6 days a week. That's when I closed my store. That's when I was working 6 days. I started working 6 days a week. I'd be in Largo one night, Kissimmee the next, Newport Richie the next, Plant City, Palmetto, Orlando, St. whatever.
I don't know how your body can take that kind of punishment.
What I really appreciate about Paul is he came up at the beginning of those tough times where the pay wasn't hardly anything.
Yeah.
And then he made his way.
It was evolving with the internet and everything too, starting, so everything, the old school factor of the business was diminishing, and a different style of wrestling was coming along, and it was, and I was always an old school guy, and so it was kind of a weird fit, you know what I mean? But if you want it, you got to be able to do it all too if you're in this business.
That's right.
Well, I remember Paul Orndorff, and you were very good friends, and the respect these old guys gave to Cahagas is incredible, and including myself. I mean, I don't want to blow him up, but he no, I mean he always appreciated where he came from, and he worked hard to get where he's at now.
Yeah.
I'm proud of him.
I am too, and I'm proud of you too, Sheriff.
Well,
I mean, I'll just be proud of both of you.
We're proud of you, Harry.
Well, let's all be proud of each other. Well,
the thing is when I tried to get in this business, I thought about being a promoter prior.
Yeah,
and then I met a couple guys, and it's just. It didn't I was like, no, I won't. So, and I always went that way because I was pretty much always honest with myself saying, man, these guys are monsters, big, they're larger than life, and all that. And I wasn't a big kid. And so I figured I'd promote. Well, then the wrestling started evolving and, WCW at that time was bringing in a lot of cruiserweights and this and that. And I was like, man, I can do that,
Yeah.
And, so I went out and I was just driving down 27. This is when they were making it extra lanes and stuff.
That's
right. Out there in front of Red Lobster and all. Mm-hmm. And I seen Tyree Pride out there, driving a forklift, for the sod. He had a crew out there, and I was like, holy cow! So I pulled over and I hollered him over, and I was like, man, I want to wrestle. And he was like, I'll train you if you give me a ring. If we can find a ring. And he had one, but it was really bad shape back then, but
well, you found a ring.
Howie's, yeah. So it wasn't as bad as Howie's, but then I didn't have a place to do it or nothing.
I had a good ring.
Yeah, we fixed it up nice. But other than that, so I kept in contact with Tyree, and then the guys that I had met about trying to promote were retired independent wrestlers as well. Mm-hmm. And one of them was named Big Time Ed Westfield. Mm-hmm. You know Ed West from Avon Park? Okay. Ed was a wrestler.
I'll be darned.
Yep. And there's another guy by the name of Terry Gandy from Avon Park. He went by Terry Hart. Uh-huh. And so I met them guys, and a mutual friend of me and Howie's kind of put me and him. I met, and he put me and Howie together. And so I just, Howie gave me the opportunity to come out there and use his ring. And I'll never forget the first day I went out there, walking through that grove, and, I never stepped foot in the ring or nothing. You never been past the guardrails, you know what I mean? But I knew what I was looking at, and it was like buried. Like, I mean, the ring is like 3 foot high, right, from the floor. Well, it was buried like 3 foot deep, and it was tilted, slanted. And the first time I stepped up on the ring and my foot just touched the rope and it just snapped. And these are steel cables.
Oh, yeah.
And he had this old boxing canvas. It was slick as glass.
Uh-huh.
And I'd get out there, and Ed would show me his stuff, and Terry would just beat the snot out of me all the time. And Howie would come out there and he would muster me up a bit, you know. There was one time I'll mention here in a bit, but so I ran into Sean Crawford,
Yeah.
and he started training as well.
Okay. I didn't know that about Sean.
And then at that time I had already rebuilt the ring, and then when Sean came, you know, he kind of took it and refurbished it a little more. But when we were done, man, we had a nice, sweet ring, you know. And we were out there. I mean, it was times when, you know, it'd be soaking wet out there, and we'd.
When you're in a grove?
And we'd do a move and slide out of the ring out into the sand, you know, and just slide right out of the ring. But we were out in the grove in the blithering heat, and
wide open,
cold,
no top,
heat, cold. Fantastic. I mean, it was something.
Do you have pictures of it?
You know, I got old video of it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like me and Sean training and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Doing things. But, you know, the first 6 months, it was just like Howie said. I mean, I went home and I'd be like, man, I don't know if I can do this. Mm-hmm. But then the next day I get up and I'm like, oh, I'm all right. And then it's like, you know, back to training again. Yep. And, but yeah, it makes you think, because it's no joke. There's, you know, nothing faked about getting dropped on you. No. You know. No. It's all hard. I don't care if there's a little padding on it or not. Those are still steel cables under basically rubber hoses, you know, and you can't knock it till you try it, bro, because it's no joke.
I've always wanted to.
So you have to love it. You know, bottom line, you have to.
Yeah. This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. No. Is that ring? Is that the ring that ended up in the back of your shop, or is that a different ring?
Yes, it is. That was the ring I had in my store. Yeah.
That ring's been around, and guess who has it now? Tyree.
No kidding.
Tyree's got it. I gave it back to him. I bought that ring from Lakeland Civic Center.
No kidding. It's got history.
Well, a guy that had bought it from them, and then I bought it from him. He worked for a steel company over there, Mine and Mill or whatever. But anyway, I got Dusty Rhodes in the truck with me before a match, and we're riding around, and we ride down by the ring, and it's raining, you know, and it's outside. He said, "I know that." He said that was in Lakeland Civic Center. He had wrestled in that ring.
Oh,
it's very distinctive too, because the way it was built, it's literally pipes.
Yeah,
it's not square tubing. It's not, you know,
it's
angle.
Tough to put together.
It's like 2.5-inch steel pipe.
Yeah.
You know, so each runner, it's, you know, so it's a little different. It's very distinctive. Like I could see it 100 years from now and know it was that ring.
That's really cool.
And it'll be here 100 years from now.
No doubt about that.
Y'all really did a fine job. I appreciate the way you fixed it up.
Oh,
well, we needed a place to train. We didn't do it for you.
Well, it turned out for me.
And we used it a lot.
I finally put it in a barn, and I kept it for a while, several years, and
I never went out.
When I got a chance to get back into wrestling, which I never thought that would happen, Mike Graham called me, and this guy helped me a lot. And with the group down in Havery.
Yeah, Florida Championship
Wrestling. It was Florida Championship Wrestling. Yeah. And anyway, I put that old ring up, and we started training.
Around 2006-ish?
A little earlier, 2003, wasn't it? 2004, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe and then we ran all up around Florida. Yeah. And then, but prior to that, me and Sean were doing the Lake Placid skating rink once a month back then. You know, early in 90.
Yeah.
Or about 2000, early 2000. Yeah. We were out there doing that. And then eventually, you know, things always change in the wrestling business. And then eventually we started running here in Sebring.
Yeah.
And we ran the high school and the fairgrounds. And I think we even ran the armory once.
I saw you at the armory. Yeah. I saw you at the fairgrounds once. Yeah. A lot of the times I work
right
same time the wrestling matches are, and that always pissed me off because I really wanted to be at those, but I had to earn a living too. 2 years ago, I took she was my ex-wife at the time, and my son Harrison over to the place on the lake where was it? Winter Haven, maybe
Tanner's.
Yeah,
where I run the show.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Yes,
still run shows.
You're still running the show there. All right. So we went over.
Did I see you there?
No.
Okay.
No, I sent
Was
a
I
message.
there?
You were there.
Okay.
And I watched you wrestle.
Oh, okay.
But I sent a message
I think I do
through
recall
one of
the
the
message.
guys, but you got it too late.
Oh, okay.
And we had already gone.
I got you.
And I don't want to mess with you on a night, that you're doing a show. So I just because I get it. I get that. Yeah.
Kind of in your own realm.
I want to respect your time.
Yeah, it's all good. But of course, I would have took time.
But my wife, I love her so much. She's very straight laced, and she's a good girl, and having these cut guys dripping with sweat. We were in the front row, and they're fighting right in front of her, and her eyes are this big. She'd never really even seen pro wrestling on TV,
Yeah, it's
but
a
to
little
be
bit of a
right
culture shock,
there,
yeah.
oh, it was priceless. Just watching her reaction and watching my son react to her and react to me reacting to her. It was great.
Well, that's the
Really,
thing too.
really
It's a fun
great.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, like what kid, that went with their family or parent or grandmother or whatever when they were little. What kid don't remember that and cherish it?
Oh yeah.
Love it.
That's right.
They all do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And one of my highlights, I was a senior in high school, and Coach Tav was still bringing the wrestling in, and I was old enough that I could be a security guard. So me and Dave, remember Dave Tavernier?
Yeah.
Yeah. So David had the bad guys' side, the girls' locker room, and I had the good guys' side. And I got to just stand outside. All I did was stand outside the door and not let anybody in. That was being a security guard. Right. But I got to see my heroes face to face.
Yeah.
And to a T, everybody that came by me was, like, hey, how you doing tonight? Thanks for doing what you're doing. Appreciate you. I mean, just super,
everybody's good and
super nice.
Man.
And then I got to get in the ring after, and I got to bounce around the ring a little bit, and I got some 8mm film of that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've got some 8mm of Dusty Rhodes in there, and there was a 4-man battle, and they were all tied up with their legs, and they were like, I don't know what that's called. When you have 4 guys and all 4 of you are tangled together with your legs, and you're like bouncing kind of with your body up and down.
I think they're doing the row.
Yeah.
It was so cool. Whatever, I don't know what it was, but it was so cool. Yeah. I would literally spend all day talking about wrestling with you guys. But I also want to talk about some other stuff too. So we could do rock, paper, scissors, but I need to talk about the pet store.
Okay.
And I need to talk about music.
Okay.
And I need to talk about being a sheriff.
Okay.
In my mind, you were the first Grady Judd. Before
that's quite a compliment.
Before there was before there was a Grady, there was Sheriff Godwin, and I looked at you back then, and I still do now, as the kind of the badass that Grady is.
Well, let me tell you something that's funny that you would say that, because there wouldn't have been a Sheriff Godwin without Grady Judd.
Is that right?
Grady Judd designed my campaign.
Really? Yeah. Was he sheriff at the time?
No, he worked. I met Grady Judd. We went to Rollins College together. Okay. He was in the bachelor program. I was in the master's program. Mm-hmm. And Sheriff Crow was sheriff at that time in Polk County, and and then we all met at Bartow, and Judge Oliver Green was our instructor. And how I got in Rollins was an amazing story on its own. But anyway, I got in there as a special student. Mm-hmm. But Grady and I went through those 3 or 4 years together, and then he went on to the master's, and he's got his doctorate degree now. But Grady did design my campaign in '87. We met at the the old Frostproof truck stop.
Yep.
Once a week.
Yep.
And have you done this? Have you done that? And Grady would come down to the races each year with Dr. Case and Judge Green. And we Grady's always been just a hero to me.
Yeah.
And,
oh, yeah.
What dawned on me is our little trip we took. I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Let me interrupt this. Him and his buddy, Grady Judd.
That's why he's my buddy. Go ahead with your story.
I would have known that, but so We were at one of I think it was the event where it was the same day Dusty died.
Was it?
I believe it was. And we went to an event up in Tampa together, and then we came back, and then it was a weird day, and it was like a holiday weekend or something too, I think. And he had to get back, I got to get back. I got to be back by this time, right?
He's blaming it on me.
It sounds like it.
I didn't tell you to drive 90 miles an hour.
I wasn't. Well, I had the sheriff in my car. Right? So we're coming through Bartow, and he goes, "Gotcha."
Oh, boy.
And I was like, damn. Whoop.
That's all right.
And so we're riding. He was behind us a couple miles, just hanging out back there, and lights come on, and pull over. I got Howie with me, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Golden egg.
Yeah. And so he comes up, big old Polk County dude, and he says, license, blah, 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 and this and that, and asks me some other questions, and Howie goes, "Hey, is Grady Judd still the sheriff?"
No, I didn't
Yes,
say
that's
that.
what
No.
you said.
You've been hit too many times in the head, man.
You said that because he looked at you, and then I looked at you, and then he just walked off. He didn't even answer you. And I looked at you, and I said,
I remember
you
you-
haven't done this very often, have you?
I remember when you told him you had a gun in the car,
Well, yeah.
and then you said to me, "Why don't you say something?" No.
Oh, here we go. Plot
And
thickens.
then we drive off, and all the way home, it was, "Why didn't you say something?" I said,
He did say something. He said, "Isn't Grady Judd still the sheriff?" That's
trying
what
to
he
help.
said.
That's all I was going to
Like I said, he's never been in that situation before.
So did you
he
get
had
rode up
no
or didn't
idea.
you?
Oh, yeah,
I got
You got rode up?
Yes, sir.
With the, no.
Yeah.
No, but tell him about the.
What? I got you home, didn't I?
No, but there's been other times when you've thrown that belt out there and let the.
Yeah, but
He sent me a belt with, I'm not going to say what department it was, but he sent me a picture one night of the deputy that stopped him wearing the
on the
World
side of the
Heavyweight
highway.
belt on the
Yes.
side of the highway.
Awesome.
Well, you know what it is? It's Fidel Sierra, the Cuban assassin, right?
Yeah.
He always told me, if you got a belt, leave it in the passenger side.
Wow.
And I was going, that's when I was working the 6 days.
Yep.
And I was coming back from Largo, and I take the same route. And a light kicked on, and I was like, oh, man, pulled over. And at that time, I was national champion, NWA national champion. And belt was laying there, and guy was nice, he was like, oh, what's that, and I was like, oh, it's a this and that. And then he was like, okay, he gave me a warning,
Yeah.
it was all good. And a few months later, same day, same time, same place, I get pulled over again. And at that time, I'm world's champion, NWA world's champion. And I got that on the scene.
Yeah.
And he pulls me over, and I'm going, man, I hope it's the same guy.
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
And then I see him, and I'm like, it's the same guy.
No way.
But he comes up, and I'm like, oh, hey, man, how you doing? And he was like, license registration. I'm like, aren't you the same? He was like, yeah, you got your license registration. I'm like, oh, man, not a good night, right? So I get it, give it to him. He goes back there, and he comes back. He goes, you need to step out of the car. You're going to jail. I'm like, for what? He said, I think it was my insurance. It's just something, And I'm like, what? And he was like, nah, man, I'm just kidding. He's like, what do you got there? He goes, what do you got there? And I'm like, oh, brother, that's the NWA World's title. So he did that, and he was like, he goes, can I take a picture of you? Right? Me on the, and I was like, as long as I can take a picture of you.
Ah, nice.
And so we switched that out, and then I sent it to Howie.
Well, what was so funny about it, too, is I happened to be working for that same department.
You know the guy.
No way.
The guy calls me right after the ticket incident.
Great.
And I'm working over there that night. And he shows me the picture. He's laughing, It's amazing. I said, you guys are crazy.
Yeah. I literally got out of a ticket in Texas one time, too. And that's like unheard of. But I did with the belt. I pulled the Von Erich
Yeah.
gimmick on him,
Yes. This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that Florida Championship Wrestling, Eddie Graham's, when he ran it, and even when Mike ran it, they gave a certain percentage of every show to the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranches.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Very, very neat. And I know they just did a lot of promotion for us,
Was that Coach John Heath, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Coach John Heath, too, Those are some great, great guys. Yeah. But you didn't want to cross them. You didn't want to, even Gordon could be rough.
Even Gordon?
Oh, yeah. I did a few interviews with him, and he didn't like my style. But
really?
Yeah.
He rooted him pretty bad.
We did some TV stuff. They tried to help me a little bit.
Yeah.
They put me over on TV as being a great guy.
What? Well, you are a great guy.
Oh, I don't know about that great.
You mentioned
when you go in and save Steve Kern and Mike Graham from losing their belts,
that's huge.
Great,
yeah, that's huge. Boy, what a tag team. Steve Kern and Mike Graham. Mm-hmm. Golly. Rocky Johnson. Rocky Johnson used to do the shuffle with his feet, and he'd put people in the full Boston Crab, and it was all over. Oh man, it's all coming back to you. Mentioned Von Erich, the movie.
Von Erich's, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great movie. Iron Claw. Yeah, was
a little bit missing out of it. Fairly close, but there's some stuff missing.
But accurate enough.
Yeah, for what people need to know, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's the story.
Yeah. Boy, I like that movie.
It was very good. It's a lot of that stuff. It's pretty intriguing. The stories that are involved behind it and stuff like that. What these guys actually go through.
Oh yeah.
One quick little wrestling before we move on.
That's fine.
Story. I get a call from Gerald Briscoe one night, and he says, "Hey," he says, "we're taking a few local guys." He says, "We're gonna do a show at the Sun Dome." WWF.
Oh yeah.
How about coming up? If
wow.
You want to? And I said, "Wow, I'll be there."
Yeah.
So go up there. I got a few friends go with me, and I'm on top of the world. I go in, and I sit my bag down, and they got this big blackboard.
One man gang.
Yeah. They turn that over so you can see your opponent. And it said the One Man Gang.
Wow.
First Tom Horn. I could have if there would have been a door open, I would have run out of there.
That video's out there. I've seen it. That's why I said One Man Gang.
Literally killed me. But the whole thing was, in the meantime, I had laid my bag down on an old duffel bag, and it was Jake Roberts' snake.
No way.
So he had me by the throat in the dressing room because I killed his snake just about, I guess. I smothered. I'd been there 5 minutes, and it was death was imminent. And to this day, I limp because he said, you know what an avalanche is? I said, yeah, I've seen it on TV. He said, well, you're fixing to get one.
Oh man!
And it's coming down straight up, straight down, and there's no way to protect your knees that I could figure out. I couldn't figure it out, and it felt like a Cadillac had landed on me.
He was probably a little stiffer than usual.
Well, when he stepped on my stomach with both feet, see, you can do it with one foot and get by with kind of raising it up.
Sure.
But when you do 2 feet, you got 475 pounds on. And I saw him one other time, and I started to say, well, we got something in common. He was a George Gray prison guard in Angola, in Louisiana.
He's still in Louisiana.
Yeah, but he's retired now. But anyway, and then I said, you know what? I'm not going to even say anything to him. I don't even want to remember that event. So I walked around with a limp for about 3 years.
I'll be darned.
He was when I was a little kid. The first wrestling event I went to, he was the first autograph I ever got. One man gang.
Really?
That big old scary dude was the first autograph.
Ain't that something?
When he yelled at me, he always yelled. It scared me. I mean, really scared me bad. And then he's got Slickster with him, his manager. Mm-hmm. You're gonna die. You're gonna die, boy. And I guess they could see I was.
Wow. That is the dream. I mean, you guys live the dream.
You love it.
It was a nightmare, but it worked out.
Wow.
It worked out. They said we're gonna use this video. We're gonna pay you extra because we're gonna the way you took that fall. We like that.
Yeah.
That's what they give me an extra $100.
How about that?
That's because if you settle,
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I was like, oh, that's great. I'll take sign this paper.
just like-
I signed everything,
and it was so brutal, we're gonna play it every week.
Yeah.
and they did.
And they did.
They did for about 3 months. It was at the beginning of the WWF show.
All these
I'll be darned. Did you get any royalties for being on the beginning of the WWF?
$100.
That was the one time payment.
I paid for that release.
Wow. Ain't that something?
So
That's cool. That's cool.
It's all just to associate with them people. I just seen him like not too long ago, gang and stuff like that. They're them people like he's talking about. I mean, I could see how they were like that there because the veterans are like that, are very still, they're sacred to their business, and so I mean, but in all reality, they're great people. I mean, they're great. I mean, because it's hard to. I mean, they're out there, but it's really hard to be a bad person in a business like this unless you can really back yourself up.
Yeah.
Well, I know one thing that he could have killed me if he wanted to, but he made me think I was dying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I believe it. I totally believe it.
It's scary right now just talking about it.
You're talking about the veterans, the old timers, whatever. But I know that you guys are treating the young guys right because of how you were treated probably by them. I'm sure you're carrying on that tradition.
I think Paul does a great job of doing that.
I mean, I'm just the way I am. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm an old school dude. I believe in the tradition of wrestling, the respect for wrestling, and the appreciation for wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's just so many people get in it for so many different reasons that I don't always agree with, but it's just things have changed now so much in it. And it's like, I mean, I've been in this business for 26 years, and 27 years actually.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's changed, and it was changing back then with, with Howie and them. And like they don't beat them up like they used to beat me up.
Sure.
I mean, Howie had me screaming one time so bad.
I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. It was, I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I came out to the Grove and he had just got out of the sheriff's department. Okay. And he comes walking up out of the Grove. One of the Grove, it's got a little hillside to it, right? So when he's walking, all you see is, the head and then the body comes up and he's coming up this hillside and his hair's out to here. He ain't shaved, and all this. And he's, and I said, man, what? He goes, I haven't even bathed since I left the office. How he was just having a good time, just relaxing every day, And then I got in the ring and then he was like, come here, get in here. Let me show you. Let me try something. I ain't done this in a long time.
The sugar.
Oh, boy.
Oh, brother. So I got down and he cranked this thing on me, man. It's just me and him out in the Grove, middle of the orange grove, right? And I'm screaming. I'm screaming. I never scream. I mean, I could not scream. It was brutal, man. But that was a normal thing. How these guys got trained. I mean, Howie's training. It was rough.
Oh yeah.
But Terry and all them guys who helped me, they put me through it. They didn't just let me, come there.
Yeah.
And I guess they just saw enough in me that they just, kept helping me. And, if it wasn't for those guys and Howie, I probably would, because I tried to get into business when I was younger too, like when I was like 18. I lived in Orlando for a brief time, and it's not something you could just, look up in the phone book.
No, I would
And
guess.
Orlando is such a big city, I just didn't know where to start, so I pretty much gave up. And then, a few years later, when I was here, it was one of them things. I'm going to have to do this or try it, or one day I'm going to wish I did.
Right.
And I wasn't going to do that, so I did it, and now I'm stuck like Chuck. You know what I mean? But I enjoy it.
That's the right call.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've made a lot of people happy with your. I almost said ministry. Because I still have a little bit of that, tucked away. But what you guys do? When was the last time you wrestled?
Probably 2008.
Okay. What you do and what you did is it's kind of what I do. You let people forget about their worries for a little while.
Let them invest in.
That's right. Yeah. And for a couple of hours on a night, they get to go and forget about the bills, and they forget about, Uncle Joe's cancer, and they forget that they just lost a loved one, and they can forget their sadness, and you guys lift them up.
Yeah.
And you bring them back for a while, and that's I don't know if you understand how important that is. But.
No, I get it. I get it.
You know what probably gave me, when I started understanding that, when we went to Plant City a lot and went to Mulberry a lot.
Yep.
In Mulberry Civic Center every other week for years.
Mm-hmm. And
there would be boxes of strawberries, and they'd make sure the fans would make sure you had. And some of these people didn't make but $15 a day or whatever, and they would spend their hard money to come see you in that little civic center, wrestle and do your best, but there'd be chicken and potato salad.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna fix you that Tommy Horn, and I just had a lot of, and the fans getting involved. I saw people stabbed there. I saw people cut with aluminum Coke cans, and just the fans it got
You get
too
rowdy
wild.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Got too wild, but
I had a fan stab a wrestler like 5 times with a pin, man.
No
at my
kidding.
show. Yeah, it's crazy.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
Eddie Graham called me just about every Friday night to the time he passed, because we became friends. And what was amazing was he'd ask me, how the matches were going, and then when I'd see him, he'd always show me some type of hold.
Yep.
Front face lock, his sugar hold, all those holds.
And he'd come home and try them on me.
Let me tell you, they're devastating. They're submission holds, and they make a crybaby out
They
of
work.
out
They
of a big
work.
man.
I used a sugar hold one time. That was it. But it definitely works.
So the sleeper.
No.
Yeah, you ever been put in a sleeper?
Well,
I've been put in.
yeah, I've been put in it. Yeah, that's just lose circulation, and
That's scary stuff, man.
it happens.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
minor compared to a lot of other stuff.
The sleeper, that was the one, man. When we were all wrestling as kids, and you'd pick your wrestler, and who's going to be the good guy, who's going to be the bad guy, and you try to mimic their moves and all that kind of stuff.
If you just get
So
these
cool.
carotid arteries just closed off, you got them. I've seen people do it with 2 fingers.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Yeah, we used to have these pajamas, back in the day. They were kind of tight leg pajamas, and those were the wrestling trunks or underwear. You just go out in the underwear and you just go out and wrestle. Oh, that's so fun. Did you back to law? Did you take over from Joe, or was there somebody between you and
It
Joe?
was after Joe.
So it was Joe and then you,
You're right.
then Susan,
Right.
and now Paul.
Right.
Okay. I think that Highlands County has had a pretty exceptional group of people.
I think so. I
le-
think they've all done
leading.
a good job.
Yeah, I do too.
Really think the world of Paul. I hired
Yeah.
Paul.
Oh, did you really? Yeah, he's a good man. And Susan, I liked Susan. She
hired
was a
Susan, too.
really nice
At one
person.
point, she was there with Shepard too at some time.
Joe was a character.
Oh yeah.
I'll bet you could tell some stories about Joe.
Well, we're not going to. Well, Joe introduced me to Eddie Graham. That was the best thing he could have ever done.
Oh yeah.
And I worked midnight shifts, so he allowed me to do the rest.
Yeah,
of it.
that was cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And when they put a radio in my truck where I could call in, and I could hear what was going on before I went on shift, that was cool too. So.
Very cool. Something happened several years ago. This might be one of the best moments of my whole life. I got asked to go to Frostproof and sing a couple songs for this fundraiser. Vicky Alley, she asked if I would come, so I went. Me and Dawn went, my wife, and Sheriff Grady was there, and do you want to meet him? Do you want to meet him? I was like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a fan. I don't want to be a fanboy, but I really wanted to. To make a long story short, I got Grady Judd up on stage to sing with me.
What?
And he sang, I have a video somewhere. He sang one chorus of I Fought the Law and the Law Won. And we were standing down by one of the tables. And I said, Sheriff, how do you feel about singing a song with me? No, I don't really sing. But he had this kind of a smirk on his face. And I said, just one chorus of one song. And he said, well, what's the song? And I said, I fought the law and the law won. And at that point, his wife spoke up and she looked him right in the eye. She said, I don't think this is a good idea. And then he said, just one chorus? And I said, yes, sir, just one chorus. And she looked at him again and she said, I really don't think this is a very good idea. But to make a long story short, he got up and sang that. And it was like one of my, I got more mileage out of that video on my phone. Look who was singing with me. Look who was singing with me.
He's one of the best orators I've ever seen. I put him up there with Ronald Reagan, and the best of them. Yeah. And tells a simple story. If you don't get his press conference, we're talking about below 3 IQ.
That's right. Yeah.
He kind of lays it out there, don't he?
He really does. Plain as day.
And he tells it
exactly like it is. Yep. Yeah, he's a character. And Paul, I would say, is like, I wouldn't say the opposite, but kind of the opposite. Paul is, I think, a little bit more reserved. I hope that if Sheriff Judd is listening, he doesn't take this wrong, but more professional, more eloquent with what he does, but just as firm. And I wouldn't want to cross Sheriff Blackman either.
No.
I think he's doing a fine job.
Oh, I do too.
For the county. I really, really do.
I'm very proud of that agency. I'm proud to be a member of it and proud to see where it's, it went before I was there and it went after I was there.
And Chief Hoagland's doing a great job in the city too. I think all of our first
Devin and I were great.
Oh, well, sure.
They were
friends.
Yeah,
he got in the ring once, didn't he?
He got in the ring several times.
Once with me.
But I tell you, Tom Detman is a great friend. He was a very good police chief too.
Yes, he was. Yes,
very
indeed.
good leader and very, very smart. Yeah. Smarter than you would give him credit for, probably. But a good talker too.
Oh yeah. Well, he has a persona about him.
He does,
and he's way deeper than his persona.
He is,
and a little more crafty than his persona lets on. I almost said shifty, but I think crafty is probably a little bit better.
He's always got
I like the shifty.
little thought process. You can see a little devil run across there.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, man. Arcade Pets. Mm-hmm. When did you acquire that, or when were you involved in that?
Oh, man. I was working there when I was 18, 19 years old. I started working there. And I had just bought a fish tank from this new pet store downtown. Yeah. It was down in the hallway. And, what was that building? I forget the name.
You talking about the Caraway building?
No. When we was behind that.
Behind the Macbeth building. Yes.
Yeah. Remember, it had the hallway. Yes. You went down the hallway.
I remember.
It used to be a bookstore.
Yeah, that's right.
Years way before that, it used to be an arcade.
There was an arcade in there. Yeah.
And So this guy, opened up a store, and I went in there and I bought a fish tank, and he just said, "Here, take this home, pay me off."
Wow.
I never met the guy before in my life, and he did this with a lot of people. He trusted a lot of people, and he was just trying to, build a business. And I paid him off, and then they needed more help, and I was like, man, I could use a job, So I went to work there, and then years went by. Then we moved into that Caraway building.
Yes.
And redid the whole entire
yeah.
thing. And we were in there, and then I decided, hey, I want to maybe do something else. And then I got to doing something else and realized I don't want to do this. And so I thought about opening up a pet store, and I talked to him about it. And he was, come down and said, "Why don't you just buy this one?" Mm-hmm. So I said, "All right." And so I just kind of took off from there, and and then downtown was kind of flowing out a little bit, So I moved out there to that old that newspaper building.
Yeah, the shopper's guide
directly across from the wall. So I moved out there, and that was probably the best thing I could have done.
Okay.
And just going on, and just through time, I probably was out there where I was in business probably about 16 years, I think, total or something. And just things change, and and at that time I was getting involved with the NWA and stuff like that in wrestling, because I was wrestling full time too. Well, not full time, but I was running the store, and then I was constantly running. I'd be training 2 or 3 days a week, out of town, and then and going to the gym, and then running the shop and all that. So I was really running around, and had kids too, and so I was really running around a lot. And but then when I ended up closing the store, at that time I was starting to really up and up in the business, wrestling, and I got involved with the NWA, and got a big push in that, and did quite a few things with them, and and I still go. I still got a school. I got a school up in Auburndale.
Yeah.
I run a promotion that runs a show up in Tanner's Lakeside on Winter Haven.
Oh, yeah.
It's once a month, second Friday of every month, and I go up to different places. I help agent different shows and companies and stuff like that. I help agent matches and stuff. So I do a lot now to kind of help out the younger guys. Just because it's something they're missing, a lot of them. And I like to teach guys. I like to teach them the stuff that they don't get taught.
Sure.
So it's one of them things. One time I was pretty, selfish, just like anybody in this business. You got into it for yourself, not for anybody else. And so you tend to get selfish, and I wouldn't help care about those younger guys. Care about them, because they didn't care about it.
Right.
So I was just really had a bad taste, and and as time changes, and you see guys that want to know and want to listen, or want to hear it, and so they appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that more, and working with some the other local companies. I still work it out, wrestle throughout, all over too. Mm-hmm. So I fly out mostly. I don't wrestle so much here in Florida, except for my company, if anything. But actually, no, I will be in OCC in Clearwater this Sunday.
Nice.
I'll be up there. But so it's just things change, and I haven't I've pretty much been full-time wrestler for the past 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And some people look at it like it's not a job. To me, it's a job.
Absolutely.
When I leave my house, I'm going to work. Mm-hmm. I guess it's maybe one of them things where it's not a job if you like it. Or if it's something you enjoy, or it's not a job. Well, okay. I still like doing it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's just a different business. It's not, it's not normal, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely not normal. No. 100% not normal.
Like I said earlier, the respect he has with the younger and the older wrestlers is amazing to me, and he's earned that, and he excelled far more than I ever thought. That young guy coming out there to the match, coming out to the wrestling ring in the Orange Grove would ever do, and I'm just overly proud of him.
Me too.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody. You know that's the thing. You know that that I've learned is you know, everybody has a dream. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, you know, on the way through that dream, you know, there's a lot of other accomplishments. You don't necessarily always catch that dream. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, as a friend of mine, like Gangrel David Heath, the way he would say it is, the jewel is the journey.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
You know, everybody gets into business. I mean, just like when Howie got in, he wanted to be on TV. He wanted to do this. You know what I mean? You want to go to the top.
Yeah.
It's like in any kind of field you get into, entertainment field especially. And it's the same way with me. I wanted to go and I wanted to be on TV. You know, I mean, it wasn't about the money.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to go and be a pro wrestler, you know, and achieve a dream. The money just
That's right.
happens to come with it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And sometimes things go different paths, you know, and, you know, I made it in my own way.
Yeah, you
You know,
do.
I didn't never sign to a contract. I've done plenty of TV, but I've never signed a contract or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but I mean, I've done things that no one else will do,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And I can say that I was, you know, I'm on that list in history,
That's right.
you know, a few different times. Actually, 4 times. The Triple Crown thing of having the 3 major titles, and I was a national champion twice, North American, and then the Worlds. And also in history, NWA history, I'm the lightest Worlds champion in NWA history.
Ain't that something? That's cool. That's saying something, man.
Yeah. Well,
I tell you what, I've been in the ring with him a few times. He's be pretty rough.
I
He's got a bad chop.
I-
You know, he remembered that sugar hole, I believe, several times. Always hated that chop, but and the kick to the back of the head.
well-
The running kick to the back of the head.
You ever get whacked with that pole of his?
Oh,
bro.
we've got plenty of tape on that.
Speaking of Detman earlier, right? So we're in Sebring. You might have been. Were you there when there was a steel cage match?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, with Detman and Howie.
I believe so.
You were there.
Was it at the fairgrounds? Or was it at...
No, that was at the fairgrounds. The steel cage
Yeah.
match was at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
Evan Sullivan was there.
Evan Sullivan, all of us were there, right? And Howie and Detman were in the ring, right? In the steel cage. And I came in there like I was going to save him. And I turn around and whack, and I smack Howie.
Oh, boy.
Howie goes down, and there's Detman. So I rear back and I crack him, right? And he goes down, tries to get back up. So I smack him in the head again. And then he tries to get back up again. And I was saying, stay down. I'm cracking him in the head, telling him, stay down. So finally, he calmed down and he laid there. But I always look at it as, I mean, there's not many people that can get a free pass
Yeah.
of, you know, aggravated battery
Yeah.
in front of 1,000 people on the sheriff and the police chief.
Yep.
That don't happen.
No.
I remember one night.
That's awesome.
A little quick story on Tom. One night in Immokalee or somewhere, Kevin and Casey that I just saw again.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Kevin and Casey Thompson and Kevin Sullivan, and I think it's Tyree Pride and our partners.
Okay.
And Detman's the manager, and he's run his mouth like he should. Well, he kept going over the other corner, which the manager's not really supposed to do that. Kevin Sullivan says, "You tell him he comes over here one more time, I'm gonna knock him out." I run back over there. You know, I just about stopped the show. I run back. Don't go back over there. He's serious. He's gonna knock you out. But
Did he go back?
no.
Okay, good call.
Good call.
Yeah.
But you know, you had to watch yourself, especially around some of these tough old guys.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
You know, Kevin passed recently this year, and you know, he was a big mentor to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you're talking about Henri and that, like this was recent. I was up in like, I think Tennessee or Kentucky, and it was me and Kevin Sullivan, and he was walking up to, we were at the gas station. It was late at night. He's walking up to the store, and there was a guy there. I don't know, a homeless guy or something. He had a skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin was in the 70s.
Yeah.
And to anybody, he's just like a little old man, right?
Yeah.
Well, this guy said, "Hey, old man, give me some change." Kevin, I'm not going to say what he said, but the last part he says, "I'll take your skateboard and beat you to death." And we're just standing in the parking like, should we even go up there? And he just walked in like nothing, and just walked back. We didn't go up there. It was just like, why?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That's great.
But that's only little stuff that, there's plenty of other stuff, fun stuff. But
So this has been awesome, but it hadn't been enough.
Sure.
So
just getting started, right?
Exactly. So we're already over an hour, believe it or not.
It goes quick.
But I want to talk. Will you come back?
Oh, of course.
Either together or separately, because I want to talk about music. I want to talk about Latila Gold. I want to talk about that whole thing. I want to talk about ivermectin and quercetin, and I want to talk about Tartaria, and I want to talk about the mud flood,
too, yeah.
And I want to talk about flat Earth, and I want to talk about the lunar landing.
You gonna hang out for that?
I want to talk about all that stuff.
I got a couple hours of that not too long ago.
I forgot we took.
I'm getting weak.
Man, there's some interesting stuff out there.
There is.
There's some things. I really do believe with all my heart that everything that we thought we knew is about to get flipped on its head in some really, really serious ways.
Well, I just easily explain it as there's no such thing as conspiracy theory.
Not anymore. There's not, because they keep getting proved right. And you know what? Pilate had it right when he said, "What is truth?"
Yeah. And
we are going to be facing that head on very, very soon.
Should be interesting.
Well, I know that if I leave this earth on the way home, I have had those dreams come true for me. I mean, very seldom do you get to. I enjoyed working in the orange grove with my dad.
Yep.
And with Tommy Austin and
yep.
and the guys I worked with. I enjoyed just everything. I enjoyed working at Winn-Dixie. One of the first jobs I had was at Phillips Corner pumping gas.
Yeah.
But I think if I had anything to pass on is enjoy what you're doing,
For sure.
And if it's not good enough, find something that you do enjoy.
Yeah.
But don't ever think that you can't make a dream come true. You just have to work for it.
There it is.
Just gotta go get it.
You got to get it.
It's just, you can do anything. It's just a matter of doing.
Yeah. Man, you couldn't ask for a better way to end up this podcast with those words of wisdom right there. Thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Always,
definitely, brother.
Man, you guys are.
Boy, you've been one of my heroes, Harry. That sing and play that guitar.
I just wish you still had the hair.
So do I. So do I.
Well, I've lost some. Mine's turning gray. So
I don't even want to hear it.
Now
you haven't aged. This guy hasn't aged.
I feel like I have. From here down, I have.
Oh, man. When you got hopped out of the truck and I saw you walking up, and I'm thinking, how is this guy pulling this off? What are you doing to stay so young?
Oh man, Harry, thank you.
It's if I'm lying, I'm dying, man. You look great.
You do to me.
Okay. Well,
being 92 is a tough age.
It's awesome. Wow. Well, I can't
thanks
enough.
Thank you.
All good, man.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.